welcome back. Today is the episode 1 of our hot pot series. This is a new series that I want to share all about hot pot culture with you. And today I'm going to tell you what is hot pot, the history of hot pot, and also how to properly eat hot pot. Yes, I believe a lot of you that heard of hot pot before don't know how to start it. You see all these ingredients on the table and you freaked out a little. So today is the hot pot 101 that you can learn how to start having hot pot. Let's get started. This is Erica right here. I'm a tiny citizen currently living in America. Cooking and traveling is my passion, so I'm here to share with you my favorite Asian recipe. Besides that, all my videos cover a little history or background of the dish or the food knowledge, and also a Chinese lesson to teach you how to pronounce the dish that we're making today in Mandarin. So if that interests you, please subscribe and keep watching. First, let's talk about what is hot pot. Hot pot to me is more of experience than a dish. There's always a simmering pot in front of you that you put your ingredient in raw and you take it out and eat while it's done. And this is a whole cooking experience from the beginning of the meal to the end of it, and it's all DIY, do it by yourself. What we need to serve a hot pot is always a hot plate, a pot, some tongue, some spoon, and your own sauce, and a plate, and all the ingredients, and of course the broth in the center. Now, where did the hot pot come from? The original hot pot can trace way back in China to the 500 BC to 1000 BCs. According to the ancient book, it says back in the day when there's a sacrifice or a celebration, there will be a big pot put in the center of the ceremony with simmering water in it, and people will bring their own meat and then cook it there and share with the people around. So according to a document, hot pot have been invented for over 2,000 years now, potentially 3,000 years. Around the 1st century in China, people started to put in variety of things into the pot besides just cooking meat. And around the 6th century, the copper pot started to be more affordable for the citizens, so people started to cook their own hot pot at home. And especially in places like Dongbei, like the north of China, they really like hot pot because it fixed a problem about dish being cold before serving. And during the 11th century, hot pot restaurants started popping up in the capital of China. And when it comes to the 7th century in the Qing dynasty, people in different provinces of China started to have different recipes for their own hot pot broth. Even though you probably only heard of Chinese hot pot is actually very famous in a lot of different countries. And now let's look at some hot pot that is very common seen nowadays. First, I think the most well-known hot pot in the West is probably the Swiss fondue. Although I'm not really sure if the Swiss fondue is actually influenced by the Eastern hot pot, but this is definitely a hot pot cooking experience. The fondue broth is made of melted cheese, but the difference between fondue and the Eastern hot pot is that most of the ingredients are pre-cooked because you can't put the things in the cheese for too long to cook it. So most of the ingredients, they pre-cooked it and then they use the cheese as like a dipping sauce. Now, if we talk about the Swiss cheese fondue, we have to talk about the chocolate fondue. The chocolate part to me is more of a dessert than the meal, but it's the same idea as hot pot, that there's a simmering chocolate pot in the center and you dip your fruit or even ice cream into it for a coat of flavor. Besides fondue, I believe the second most famous hot pot is the Chinese style hot pot. Don't get me wrong, there's actually so many different types of hot pot, even in China and Taiwan, Hong Kong, these kind of Chinese culture area. But we're not gonna be able to talk about all of the flavor today because there's actually hundreds of them. But today I'm gonna talk about the 3 most special to me and my family's favorite hot pot with you. The first one is the most famous Sichuan hot pot. If you know a little bit about the Chinese culture, you've probably heard of the Sichuan hot pot before. Even though there's so many different spicy hot pot on the market right now, but the Sichuan hot pot is definitely one of the most famous one. It normally covered with tons of chili and spicy oil on top of it. If you like spicy, this will be your favorite. And the second one is actually my personal favorite, the Mancunian pickled cabbage hot pot. This hot pot broth is very special because it was actually made from the pickled Chinese cabbage, so the whole soup tastes a little more sour than anything. These kind of hot pot is very popular in Dongbei, China, because that area actually invented this hot pot style. If you translate the broth name straight from Chinese to English, what we actually call it is the sour cabbage white meat pot. The white meat we were mentioning about is the pork belly. So in this pot, normally if you ask the server like what kind of meat should I order, they will recommend you to have some pork slice with this kind of pot. And the last one is actually my dad's favorite, Taiwanese stone hot pot. Although this might not be so famous in the world, the people probably never heard of stone hot pot before if you never traveled to Taiwan, but this is very, very unique, especially the way they make the hot pot. According to the name, you can probably tell that this pot is actually made from stones. And because the stone have a really good heat preservation, so it can allows you to heat up the pot and then stir fry something in it before you put in the broth and create the hot pot. When we go to a stone hot pot restaurant in Taiwan, we'll always order some squid, and the server will be cooking in front of you with the heated stone pot and then stir fry those squid. It tastes really, really different and very crispy, very juicy. My grandpa loved those. Even though his teeth is not the best right now, he's still, you know, risking his teeth health and just chewing on those squid. And then they will stir fry the meat till around like 70% cooked and then take it out. So when you actually having a hot pot, you can add in those meat when you want to eat it, so it will never like overcooked. This stirring meat process not only make the restaurant smells irresistible, and it also adding another layer of flavor for the soup. If you ever travel to Taiwan and you're a hot pot lover, you definitely have to try this out. Now, let's talk about the Japanese hot pot. The first one I want to talk about is the sukiyaki. The main ingredient for the sukiyaki hot pot broth is actually soy sauce and mirin, which is a sweet cooking wine. Most sukiyaki are serving beef for the meat. Some of the new sukiyaki restaurant right now, they will let you cook it as a normal hot pot. You put your ingredients in, you cook it yourself. The traditional sukiyaki is actually served in a bowl and all of the ingredients are already inside, and you just need to wait till it cooks and then you eat the whole pot like soup. Either way, the most unique part of sukiyaki, in my opinion, is that the dipping sauce they use. They pick up the meat from the hot pot and then they dip it in raw egg. And it's just pure raw egg, there's nothing else. That dipping probably seems a little scary for Westerner, but dipping your meat into the egg and eat it right away, it makes it really smooth and juicy. It just... Besides this, there's also Korean army pot, tofu pot, but my personal favorite Korean hot pot is actually the Korean barbecue side pot. It's like a copper material pot that the center is like a little hill. So on that hill, there's no water, and the water surrounding it is the place that you can cook your vegetables, mushroom, and atop the little hill, you can barbecue your meat on it. So during a meal, the beef juice would just slide down into the circle, like this little river around the hill, and that make the soup taste really, really good too. But this is not a typical Korean hot pot. There's a lot of different Korean chicken hot pot and stuff like that, but this is my personal favorite. These pot that we talk about today is actually just a tip of an iceberg for the hot pot category. In the future, I'll come up with more episode of hot pot series that tell you how to make different type of broth for your hot pot, so stay tuned. Today I'm just gonna use my pre-made miso broth paste for the hot pot. This recipe will be up next week for this episode 2 of hot pot series. So if you want to check out the recipe, make sure to subscribe and come back next week. And I also want to mention something like this. Like this is a pre-made hot pot broth in a package. You can get this very easily on Amazon or like the Asian supermarket. I got this in H Mart, and this is Haidilao. This is the most famous hot pot brand in China. There's like 2-3 very, very famous hot pot places, and this Haidilao, oh my god, like the H sign, you gotta memorize this because this is the best brand. This is the best hot pot I've had in China. Like in Taiwan, there's different flavor. I'm not gonna say like, you know, the best out of all, but this is the best hot pot I had in China, and I bought their tomato flavor hot pot seasoning. I'm not gonna use it today because I already have my miso broth, but if you don't wanna making your own broth, you wanna just get something that's really good, you can get one of these packaged pot from online or Asian market. Me personally, I like to make my own broth most of the time because you can see exactly what you add into the pot, but somehow like the pre-made hot pot package just always tastes better than what I make. It's not like I make bad food, I make good food, but somehow, like, you know, they're professional. They've been doing this business for like, you know, 30, 50 years. So I got this sometimes if I'm really craving for like a restaurant hot pot, and we can't go out right now during COVID. So I have some of these stocked in my house, but most of the time I cook my own broth. Now, let's talk about the ingredients that we're gonna put in the hot pot during the meal today. Obviously, there's always meat if you're a meat eater. Today I prepared some beef slice and shrimp. And here for today, what we're preparing is I have some vegetables. This is spinach, we have broccoli, and this is the Chinese cabbage. I chop it to a little slice. And then there's mushrooms. We have 3 different type of mushrooms. And we got tofu. These are the fish cake that it come in like a stick. It was earlier, it's right here. And then I cut it into like the small slice. These taste really good, but it's more like a child favorite. I like this since I was a baby and I grew up eating it. I love it. And there's some corn, some tomatoes. This is pumpkin, and we got bamboo shoots, and these is winter melon, and we got yam as well. The different type of hot pot will sometimes have some main ingredient that traditionally it requires, but to be honest, hot pot is just a cooking method. I'll say anything that you will put in a soup, you can also put in a hot pot.